Hello and welcome on my screen. My name is Michael Anger. In this video I want to introduce you the software Exocad Dental DB 2014.02. This is the version from February of 2014 with the serial number 5164. As you can see, we begin with an order list. In the header there are active and inactive icons. The inactive icons will be active only after we filled up the order list completely. The order list is sorted by customers, job name for the patient, and technicians. Underneath there is a large field for notes. On the right we see a digital dental card or odontogram. Above the odontogram there is an auxiliary line which shows us our next step to do. So this is a help to fill up the order. And here we can read that we should first select a customer. We can select a customer from the number list or from the name list of customers. To create a new customer, we make a left click on Edit, then assign a customer number and enter the customer name. Here, the last name of the customer is fully sufficient. Furthermore, we can create here the customer's address, select a city, the country, the language, and the email address. With the left mouse click on Save, we confirm these entires and we see the customer is new created in the customer name list. Filling out the address fields is not mandatory. The client's name extends. We close this box and we see the customer is already registered in the order form. Next, we fill in the patient. Here we start with the last name and now do not use free spaces but connect the individual words with minus and plus signs. In this field we also write into the treatment details that interest us in this work . And I write also the color. With the left click in a blank area, we leave the window, then we can still choose the color of the tooth and choose a technician. For the technicians we have the same way as choose the customer. Here we can work with the number list of names of the technicians or the name list. To create a new technician, we proceed as for the customer and use the Edit field. Here we also assign a technician number . The first name and the last name of the technician. After click on Save, we can see that the technician is immediately created in the technician name list. We leave this field with a click on Close and are back in the order form where the technician is now already listed. The work instruction is now: select the reconstruction types below. Now we click on the corresponding tooth in the odontogram and immediately a field pops up named here Select the job for tooth 46. This list is organized into several points. We choose in the top categories between crowns or coppings, pontics, inlays or veneers, primary units, wax-ups, bite splints or residual dentition. We separate the crowns between anatomic crown for full anatomy, in reduced crowns, so also a full anatomy which is completely or partial shrunk for the ceramic veneering. The press crown makes two simultaneous data sets generated on one hand: the carrier caps or stand and also the wax anatomy, which I can fix on this framework to overpress it with ceramics. The offset copping is a cap structure in the definite minimum thickness, similar to a deep drawn cap, which can be built up in order to support the ceramics as in the conventional technique. The preform crown is listed here in the software already, but this tool is still in progress and is not yet available. The provisional crown corresponds to the classic eggshell temporary. Here we fabricate on an unpreparated model before grinding the stumps. We therefore distinguish the bridge links between the anatomical pontic, so same as in the anatomical crown, full anatomy. The reduced pontic, this corresponds to the anatomical coppings, so full anatomy, that is either full or partially shrunk back for the veneering with ceramics. Here the pressed pontic corresponds to the overpressed crown, so two data sets are produced because the skeleton and the wax anatomy for overpressing. The provisional pontic corresponds to the temporary crown, then so this is the pontic in case of a supply of eggshell temporaries. In inlays or veneers, we separate between the vestibular and occlusal or palatinal holdings. The occlusal or palatinal parts are named as inlays or onlays, and the veneers placed in the vestibular portions of the model. Under the item Inlay Onlay, we find fully anatomical restorations. Under the item Inlay, similar to the offset cap, we find only a skeleton cap in the material-specific minimum strength. The veneers, we always work with the full anatomy. Under the primary units, we find telescopes, bar pillars, bar segments, and also primary attachments. Should you want to work with a wax-up or wish to expect it, for example, established teeth or prosthetics as a bridge, you use anatomic wax-up for full anatomies, reduced wax-up for full anatomies who should be shrink back for the ceramic veneering, or pontic wax-up for the bridge parts. If you want to create a bite splint, you choose between bite splint for the existing teeth or for missing teeth like a switching gap or free end situation, you choose bite splint missing tooth. In the residual dentition, For non-blend teeth we select missing tooth. For the neighbor teeth, adjacent teeth, and for the antagonists, antagonist. For example, we want to establish a partial veneered crown for the tooth 4-6, and therefore we choose reduced crown. Even I want to create a full anatomic crown, I select anatomical copings or reduced crown and skip the point of shrink back. This allows me in the possibility that my customer order decided in the course of work very easy to change my design and shrink full anatomical parts back for the veneering. After I made this decision, here it goes to the next window and I can choose between different materials. Depending on from which reseller you got your software, here different materials are inserted. In the basic software we find composites, metal, metal for laser melting, PMMA and zirconia. Over here you can choose between 5 axes or 3 to 4 axes. And recommend you for all materials except zircon, select the setting 5 axis. In the case of a frame made of zirconium, I recommend you to set 3 to 4 axis. This is due to that zirconium tolerates least the pressure from the inner side. In this setting, it is not to the method of manufacturing of your frame, but the calculation of the insertation direction. We now choose zircon as material and immediately the next window appears. If you want to provide an implant, you can select the type of implant. If you choose custom abutment, you establish an abutment that will be supported with a cemented crown. Or you want to set up a custom abutment with manual positioning of the screw channel. If you want to create an occlusal screwed crown or bar post, then select occlusal screwed. Or you can choose the same with manual screw channel direction. In the present case we have no implant, so we choose no implant. If you have got a situation model available, click here at separate pre-op scans, yes, otherwise leave the settings and click no. If you have got a separate gingiva mask available, click here at separate gingiva scans, yes, otherwise stay no. Here the shrink means how much the full anatomy will be shrunk back for the ceramics. At the minimal thickness, you decide how thick your frame at the thinnest point must be at least. The gap thickness of cement is the first fitting parameter. Under the advanced settings, we find more fitting parameters. Here are the basic settings available. I will recommend you here the settings I usually use. In the gap thickness of cement, I choose 0.06 for zirconium. At the beginning of the cement gap, I choose 0.03 millimeters for zirconium. In end of the cement gap, you would say that we want not occlusal cement gap. This makes no sense for me. On the contrary, I wish occlusal an additional cement gap cause I don't want to grind in the occlusal area inside of my crown. So in additional distance occlusal, I choose 0.05 millimeters. The additional distance xy is the circumference of the crown. I only need this value in the production of outer telescopes or the milling of PMMA. This is because the PMMA becomes warm during the milling, it expands and moves away from the cutter. During cooling of the PMMA, the crown contracts again and will be too tight for the stump. So here for zirconium I don't need an additional distance xy. With the coordinate parameters, it comes to the router each area of the crown machined with the same feet, and we must artificially increase that the edge of our crown will survive the milling. Here I recommend the values 0.5 and 0.25 for zirconium. The following three values as the angel, the vertical crown margin and the cross section of connector I set at a later time in the software during the modulation. And here for zirconium I choose don't block out, always 0.0. Also this value I can change during the modeling, but these are my recommended standard parameters for zirconium crowns. To choose a color is not necessary here, not needed. With the left click on Save, I assume these values in the order form, and now the tooth 4/6 is applied as an anatomical or reduced crown. Next I define my neighbor teeth with the left click on the tooth 4/7, goes back to that window and name it as ejected tooth. With the left click on Save, I assume this setting and see this tooth is also defined in the dental chart. On your keyboard you need to work with the Exocad software only two buttons. This is the control button, it's located at the bottom left on your keyboard and is described with CTRL, and the shift key. This is it. With the control key and the left mouse clicks, you repeat the last command for an entire, with the control key and the left mouse click, you repeat the last instruction for a single following tooth. The shift key and the left mouse click repeats the last command for an entire row of tooth or teeth. So we have our whole mandible ready defined. With the left click on the upper jaw, tooth 27, so come here, we choose this as an antagonist. Then save, and with the shift key we go to the last tooth of the upper jaw and activate it completely as antagonist with the left mouse click. Immediately after we have selected an antagonist, this window named Scan Mode is active. Here you can choose whether you want to work with a bite impression, as here, or an articulator type A for the Artex articulator, for type S for the SIM articulator, or with a registered jaw without articulator. So here I decide to work with the Artex articulator. And in the command bar I can see click Save to proceed it. After I completed everything, with the left click on Save, the other fields in the header are becoming active now. Also you find here copy and import. Here we can decide to import or make an itero import. The icon to duplicate the case. Here is the ability to print. The button to start the scanner software. And the button to start the CAD, so the design software. Furthermore, you find the button to start the milling software and the button to upload your dates to a server. The last button is for selecting a milling center which is suitable for your work. To my knowledge, the button with the cross-linking of corresponding milling centers is not active yet. I don't know if there is a network yet for this. Classically, you would start the scanner software after completing the order list. I hope you enjoyed this video and I gave you a good insight into the use of the digital order list, and wish you a furthermore successful training on your e-learning platform Dentalligent. Until the next video, your Michael Anger.